altogether, after 3 months of the tsunami, there were already around 800 organizations, NGOs, donor countries, multilateral organizations like United Nations were there in Aceh. So we are so lucky that we got help from all over the world, but now the real task for us is on how to coordinate all these organizations such that they can come to a concerted effort to rebuild Aceh using our diagram. So, rebuilding Aceh based on this diagram, rebuilding housing, building housing, houses, education and health, that means schools and providing school teachers, infrastructure, that means water, sanitation, roads, bridges, harbors, capacity building, meaning training for the government officials, training for teachers, training for planners, training for office of the mayor of Banda Aceh, and economic development, meaning providing with training for the businesses to start up their business, and those kind of things can be done in a concerted effort by all these 800 organizations beside ourselves, the government of Indonesia. So now that means I can start with answering your 3 questions. The first question is basically asking the transitional process from shelter to life to normal life. What are the things that is supported by this organization that came from all over the world? So basically this diagram shows the sequence. This diagram is prepared after the what do you call it, the process happening in Aceh. So this is a kind of a post facto diagram. You'll see from this that the blue line, it started with the emergency relief. Everything start from emergency. Just like what you're seeing now in Sendai is emergency relief. And right after that, we have to start with the early recovery, and only after that we can start the rehabilitation, reconstruction, and followed by sustainable development. So you see that BRR started from Q1, the year 2005, until the year 2009, exactly 4 years. So we recovered the emergency relief to early recovery, rehab, and recon. And then when it comes to sustainable development, you'll see that the local government or the central government followed it up. On the other thing, you'll see that there's a box stating government, NGOs, and private sector. From this diagram, the government provide tents and barracks. You see that NGOs is also providing tents and tents basically. But when it comes to barracks, then that is provided by the government. Also, you will see the emergency water, sanitation, food and non-food emergency schools and clinics is provided by the government, while the NGOs providing some of them. But basically, when it comes during the emergency relief, all organizations provide almost everything, since during that emergency relief stage, the people need all those things. But in the early recovery, the temporary shelters, usually the private sector will not provide them. It is the government and the NGOs that will provide the temporary shelters, schools, and clinics. But for sure, infrastructure, there will be no NGOs, no private sector will provide infrastructure. So rebuilding the roads, bridges, water, sanitation, then that will be in the hands of the government. During the rehabilitation and reconstruction stage, the same thing happened. Infrastructure is provided by the government, and teachers and health workers that's provided by the government. So from all this, you can see how it works, how we coordinate between the government, NGOs, and the private sector. But basically, the government is waiting before the NGOs and private sector come and provide us with the help. Since we see that all these NGOs and private sector come from all over the world, coming from far away, and we give them the first chance to provide anything that they can give us in rebuilding Aceh and Nias. So this is basically what's happening when it comes to the tsunami transitional process, starting from the emergency relief, early recovery, rehab, recon, sustainable development, in terms of the coordination between government, NGOs, and the private sector. The second question is related with how these national and international resources were utilized respectively. Well, basically, the principles say that we establish one single agency with full authority. As you see from the map of Indonesia, the province of Aceh is far away from Jakarta, the capital city. It's around 3 hours flight. So that means that we need a single authority, a single agency that's located in Banda Aceh and Aceh, and with a full mandate from the central government. This is very important, such that 800 organization that comprises more than 5,000 foreign volunteers can work properly. Visa extension, work permit, and those kind of things like custom clearance, tax exemption can be arranged and processed in Banda Aceh instead of them going to Jakarta. A master plan, this master plan is basically a guidelines. It's not a master plan in such a detail master plan in which everything is clearly explained, but basically it's a guidance for all this organization to do their work in Aceh, and all these organizations that are in Aceh provide us or submit to us a kind of project concept notes stating what are the things that they plan to do, their resources, what kind of equipments they bring with them, and how long they'll be staying there, that kind of things. This is very important as a tool to coordinate all operation on the ground there in Aceh and in the island of Nias. Question 3 is with regard important points that to be considered for tsunami damage area reconstruction procedures, particularly housing area reconstruction. So the first thing to do, because there are so many organizations that want to help us in building houses, it's very important to have a building code. Our building code is basically a simple one. If it's housing or structure, it can, stand earthquake of up to 7 Richter scale. It's 7 Richter scale. So it's a matter of cost. Actually, if we put an 8 Richter scale, then the cost will triple. If it's a 9 Richter, then, well, you know that this, the cost to build a house or a structure is not linearly proportional with the Richter scale, okay? So this is the most important thing, the building code, and in that building code, beside standing or to be able to stand the earthquake, but also the space. Houses should not be less than 36 square meters and not more than 45 square meters. So that is the range of housing that anybody can build in Aceh. The land use, they have to follow the land use, where to build houses, where to build schools, and that kind of things. And then awareness is a kind of how do you raise communication and awareness about hazard threats. Disaster preparedness. So almost all of the people in Aceh make a living from the sea. So that means they cannot be separated from the sea. So this traumatic experience was basically gone after 6 months. So it's not possible basically to have them be relocated more inside from the sea, because they want to be close with their boats, with their fishing boats. So we permit them or any organization to build houses close to the sea again. But the most important thing is to build evacuation roads, evacuation buildings, and how do you prepare yourself if a tsunami or earthquake come back again, and how to save your life. Healthcare system and structural intervention, meaning that a proposed structural intervention to reduce risk. For instance, maintenance of sea defense alongside populated coastline. But as you all know, that if another earthquake with a magnitude of 9.0 or more hit that area and followed by tsunami, basically there's no structure can stand the impact of that tsunami. However, I like to remind and also thanks to Rebuild Japan, especially JICA, with providing us with this evacuation building. So this is the tsunami escape building built by JICA, and is built along the coastline in Banda Aceh. So it's there's a picture from the distance, but if you make it closer, then it is too close. But now you can see the evacuation buildings. It looks like this. It's a 4th floor, and if tsunami hit that area again, hopefully this building will not be destroyed, since it was designed to overcome or to stand around 9 Richter scale. And you can see at the top a helicopter can land, and as you also know that if tsunami hit an area, basically the water will remain there for 3-4 hours. So that means people don't have to stay too long, such that they can stand all together, and standing for 3-4 hours is okay, such that in that building they can provide a space for around 2,000 people if they are standing along this 3 hours when tsunami hit that, when the water is covering the surrounding area of this building. So this ends my presentation.